a release of retainage, but I heard from Tom Hayes last night, he's sitting next to him at the municipal council meeting, that we got a demand for direct payment from one of the subcontractors.
Noted, and that was going around this morning. Here, I'll be
And so that means that we now cannot pay that requisition. So it's not on our agenda to pay.
I believe it was approved last time.
It was approved?
Yes.
Okay, so then we should have a motion to rescind the vote, but let's finish the discussion first. So the demand for direct payment is, as I understand it, based on the fact that Collins Construction tried to pass the liquidated damages on to their subcontractors. And so that's why you will see in this letter that Snowden sent, it says on Friday, February 22nd, 2019, we received a bogus back charge claim via an email from Collins Construction representing liquidated damages resulting from their performance and numerous delays to the project schedule. So my guess is that the other subcontractors will all jump on this bandwagon if they haven't been paid and they got such things. So therefore, we will not be able to close this project out tonight. And I would suggest that a motion would be in order to rescind the approval of the last requisition, which, do we know what number that was?
It's on the bottom, 15.
Requisition number 15. So is there a motion to that?
So moved. Second.
Okay. Anybody have any other questions or comments?
And Jack, just from like a contractual standpoint, this argument would be between Snowden and the general contractor. That's
right, but they are filing a demand for direct payment, and
I agree with Snowden, by the way, but this issue is between Snowden and...
Except if we release the money.
And then they have nothing, right? So we need to protect the subcontractor.
We need to protect ourselves from a double payment.
Did you have a
just...
copy?
I did.
Oh.
The two stuck together.
So, if we release the money, and then the demand for direct payment is allowed, then we have overspent our contract. So therefore, I would suggest to you that the proper thing for us to do is to not pay, because I suspect all the other subs who got this same back charge are going to come out of the woodwork.
Yeah, I agree. We need to protect the subcontractor, Snowden.
And the city
And
at the same time.
Right.
So what happens legally for that, as far as the city goes, if Collins does not pay their subcontractors? Doesn't that kind of leave us on the lurch?
No, because we have one good protection as a city, which is that they can't lien the job. All they can do is make a demand for direct payment, and if there's any money that we have not paid out at the time that they make that demand, then we can pay them directly and subtract it from what we owe Collins. But they cannot lien the job the way a private contractor could, and that's the big difference.
Now, and we have no way of knowing whether this figure that they're saying is really what they're owed either. We don't know what Collins paid them up to this point.
And so we would have to wait until the demand is withdrawn, or a settlement letter comes in, or a court order comes in. Those would be the three choices, in my opinion. So therefore, either they'll settle it, or they'll arbitrate it, or somebody will go to court. And in the meantime, we just sit on the money.
The ball's in their court.
Yeah.
Can they, as a subcontractor, go after paying the bond money?
Well, you would think that they would file a claim with the bonding company as well, because the general contractor has two bonds. They have a performance bond and they have a payment bond. And so they go after the payment bond because the performance, we've accepted substantial completion, so that part of the bond's gone. Is there any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
I'll deem that unanimous. Okay, so then I know we're making Christine wait, but very quickly, Courtney sent us a memo. The Superintendent of Water, Courtney Wunschel. If you remember, the Attleboro Pawtucket Interconnect bidding was imminent, and it turns out that the owner of the property has not yet deeded it over to the city, and may not be doing so.
May not be?
Yes. There's some questions about the continued use of his property and large trucks turning around with what we were planning to do. Courtney told me last night that they had made some changes that he had requested, and they had CDM do one of those truck turning templates to prove that it would work. But he has not responded, and so now this has gone to the city solicitor, and I asked her last night if this meant that there would be perhaps an eminent domain taking, and she said, I don't know, I hope we don't have to go that far. So,
Do you know where exactly that is?
well, it's owned by David Burke, so it's got to be down by State Line Square. It's got to be on the state line, you would presume, because it's the connection to the Pawtucket water supply.
But some of those properties behind there are in the Attleboro. There's a wire company down in there.
It's right across from that.
Right.
Yeah, it's down there in the area. I don't think she ever showed us a map showing us where exactly where it was, did she?
I don't believe so.
So, in any event, so that's been postponed and to be determined. So that's all we have to report on that.
So are they looking for something else? Or are they just saying at this point, no?
Well, according to her memo, they're not saying anything.
It's not a good thing.
Right.
I would, that's probably why
Who's leading the?
legal's involved.
Yeah. In the last month, there's been no communication. I think that's what the memo says. So,
Who's leading the discussion with that property owner, Jack? Is that like Gary Razor's office, or is it
He was involved. Did she get him
I thought
involved?
Courtney herself was
It's
doing it.
Courtney, CDM Smith, Norton from CDM Smith, and it was John Bateman from Murphy has it to me. He's in touch with the owner's lawyer.
Do you know who's representing the owner?
Yes,
Is it Ed Casey?
yes.
who is it?
Ed Casey. The good news is that it's a very reasonable person.
He is, that probably must be so.
So, we'll see what happens.
I'm trying to pull up a map of the area to show you where it is.
Okay, well, while you're doing that, let's move on to the library. So, want to introduce yourself to everyone?
Sure. Yeah, I don't think I've met most of you yet. I'm Christine Johnson. I'm the director at the Attleboro Public Library and have been since June after Joan's retirement in May.
And I think it's safe to say that you, your assistant, and the head of the library board, Charlie Oliver, met with the mayor and I a number of months ago now, and agreed that having a space needs study would be a good idea. Is that correct?
That is correct, and we do appreciate the support of the commission for that project.
And so we have been given a document which has the kickoff of that space needs study. And there are a number of meetings that are starting on April 8th and 9th.
That's correct, yes. Next week is the first set of site visits, and to be honest with you, I don't know the total number of site visits that there will be, but we're going to be having meetings for 2 days.
Let's pass those out. And I think that's just the beginning.
I would assume that this is just the beginning. We did have a conference call with the consultants on Monday. And the way that it was explained to us at that time is that they approach all of their projects the same. So at this point, it's sort of a cookie cutter agenda. This is how they manage all their library projects. These are the general departments that they reach out to. And they did go over the specific factors that they look at initially to start. So what they look at is the number of shelves in the library that are being used, the total number of items that the library has, the circulation statistics, staff, and then public seating areas. So that's kind of their starting point. And then, of course, all of these meetings that they're organizing with different groups. So the ones where the board are involved, which is the first one on the first day at 8:30 in the morning, and then again that same evening at 6:30 are open meetings, since the board will be there. Those have been published as an open meeting for anyone that wanted to observe, as well as this group in particular might be interested in the kickoff meeting, the community breakfast meeting, which is day 2. That's Tuesday morning from 8 to 10. And then there is a third meeting that is the Attleboro Capital Facilities and Finance meeting that follows that breakfast. I would think out of the meetings that are being offered, that would probably be the ones that you folks would be most interested in if you wanted to attend or had questions.
What would you think the agenda would be for that particular meeting?
For the most part, it seems as if the agendas are all very similar, and they do kind of lay it out there in the final column. So what does the library of the future look like? What services will enhance the library now and in the future? And within this meeting, it would be reviewing library measurements, budgets, facilities, staff, and then collections and operations.
Perhaps more in the vernacular. I think we as a group are interested to know what it is you do, what it is you think you will be doing, what space you will need to accomplish now and in the foreseeable future. I think we need to know how the spaces you have match up with what we just talked about. I think we'd like to know also who your target populations are and how they get to the site. Do they walk? Do they take a bus? Drive a car? How do they get there? And I think that when we get to an alternatives analysis, I think that becomes very important, because if there are other sites around the city that might be considered, and I want everyone out there, especially those on Facebook, to understand that we're not endorsing anything at this point. We are simply gathering facts. And we haven't made a determination as to whether we should leave the current building or stay in the current building. We haven't made a determination as to, well, the first thing I say is the old building will never be knocked down. That's on no one's agenda. And also, it's on no one's agenda is not having a library. So, I'm very clear about those two things.
Quite to the contrary, is to have the best available library for the city is
Yes.
why we're doing this.
Exactly.
Right.
And how can we better deliver the services that the city needs over the course of the next 50 years? And it might be in that building and it might not be. And if it's not in that building, then we have to clearly look, as a city at what the reuses might be. But if it was not to be in that building, then the question would be, where would it potentially be and how would it affect those target populations? Those are important questions that we'd like to have answered. before we make a recommendation. And that recommendation then has to be vetted by all of the stakeholders. I'm talking about the mayor, I'm talking about the council, I'm talking about the library board, and certainly the library staff. And then we'd have to ask the municipal council to endorse whatever it is that, got through that process.
They would invite the public for a public hearing, and a lot of people would have input on this, but the goal of this group is to provide the best possible library for the city, wherever, however. Let's find out, we're doing homework, research.
Exactly, and whatever we recommend, that we have the research to back it up. And so, this is, I think, the appropriate way to approach this, and that's what we're going to do. So that second meeting, you say that's April 9th at 10?
Yes, that's the capital meeting. There's also a breakfast meeting earlier that you're invited to. That's from 8 to 10, and then the next meeting is at 10:30 is the
10:30.
capital facilities and finance meeting.
Okay. I'm going to the Boy Scout breakfast that morning, so just so much fun.
I don't blame you. If I had to choose between us and the Boy Scouts, I would do the same.
A client invited me, and then I do work for a living. When would be the question?
Yeah.
I got a little note on page 5, I know it's not a big deal, but it is going to be distributed to more of the public. It says a couple of places, like in the bottom right-hand corner, for the address the long and short-term needs of the Boxford residents.
Yes.
Well, I guess that's part of the cookie cutter.
Yeah, I actually, Gail, the one I sent, I updated that.
Oh,
Okay. Well,
Never even heard of Boxford.
that's correct spelling it under capital.
it's up on the North Shore
It's
somewhere.
way up there.
Up near Acton.
Yeah.
495.
495, yeah.
It's very nice of them to be concerned about our library, though.
So, I don't know if you have anything you want to add, Christine?
No, I mean, we're just excited, and we, the library board, library staff, everyone agrees that it's an important step to take, is to, figure out as a group what will work best for the community, not just today, but looking forward 20 to 50 years in the future. And we're hoping that this study will help us to do that.
We are too. I'm excited about it. Well, of the workshops and discussions you're going to have, what are you most looking forward to speaking about? What insights you would be able to talk to this group about?
Right. Being new to the community, I just think how busy the library is, just how many folks that we serve, and how we can maybe better serve either in that current building or in a different building as a public space. I mean, even just trying to schedule these meetings, especially with such short notice, that's why if you notice, they're kind of all over the place in the building because we just have so many things going on. So I'm excited to share that with the consultants when they come in. And I did work on a similar project like this when I was at the Great Neck Library in New York, and we did find it very helpful to have an outside lens to look at what we're doing, and also a company that has been to so many different libraries. That also works in our favor as well, because that helps you to find best practices.
One of my partners told me an interesting story today at lunch, which I think has some relevance here, so I'll share it. Which is that one of his clients, for many years, served libraries all over the country by finding missing volumes of books. So you might have a set of books, for instance, the General Laws of Massachusetts, and volume 14 goes missing because somebody doesn't return it, presumably. And so he had a business of finding these things. And his business has kind of gone by the boards because now everything is stored electronically. And so, but he's morphed his business now because he got 10 major universities to agree that they need to keep one hard copy of everything. And he has now provided that space, the warehouse space, the climate controlled, no flooding, no fires, probably no sprinklers in it because you ruin everything inside. Area though, to have that. And then there's an electronic picking and retrieval system that actually, if you need the hard copy of War and Peace, somebody punches it into a computer and a robot retrieves the thing and brings it to the front. And I just thought that was very interesting, especially in terms of what we might be doing as a library, because I know my wife likes to wander through stacks looking for books, but whether that is an efficient use of space anymore, and whether that is something we might consider on some scale.
Well, it definitely depends on the topic. Reference is now all online. We've actually eliminated our print reference collection, made it people space. But when it comes to art books or other things that sometimes are easier in hand, children's books, just basic fiction, most people still want the print version.
Right, but what I was wondering was, do we need floors and floors of stacks of books? Or
Definitely
do we
not.
have a much more compressed area and you tell the librarian at the desk, I want a book on Monet, and they punch it up in the computer and it comes to the desk?
It's like a storage collection.
Yeah.
Again, it depends on the area of the library. So if it's something very specific that the person knows they want, but then you kind of lose that serendipity of, going through the stacks and when you don't know what you want and you're just kind of browsing. But there are certain collections that certainly would work for.
Because I think, if I remember right, that we do have quite a bit of space in the current library that is devoted just to stacks of books, is it not?
That's correct. Yes, in the adult sections. Yeah, the children's room is bursting at the seams. There's really not enough room. But some of the adult collections, like I said, we've already eliminated the reference collection and made it public space, and now we're in the process of, the library term is weeding, which is when you basically eliminate materials that aren't being used or aren't valid any longer, weeding it down so that we have a more current and usable collection. It actually makes it easier to find good stuff when you have less stuff to have to go through to find what you're looking for. And being in the sales consortium helps all of us. All 70 libraries share materials. So even if we don't own a copy or a copy is out, you can usually get that item within 2 days at the most from within sales. So that's really up the game for all of us.
Which led me to sort of a wild and crazy idea, but do you see in the future that somebody will take something akin to a Kindle out of the library and you've downloaded?
Sure.
The
Yeah,
book
libraries are already
onto
doing
it?
that. Yeah, you have some licensing issues because the publishers want to,
They want
make
to sell
sure.
the book.
So, as long as you make sure that you have all your ducks in a row as far as the licensing of the items, we offer that now on your own devices, but there's certainly not a reason that we couldn't lend out equipment. We're actually in the process, we just ordered Wi-Fi hotspots that we're going to be lending out to the community. So people who don't have internet access at home or maybe traveling to a place within North America where they don't have internet access, they can borrow this hotspot and have that connection.
So can we sum this up by saying it's not your grandfather's library?
No.
Not in the least, and believe it or not, I've worked in libraries since the 80s, and I know I'm much younger than that. I was a teenager. And this is one of the busiest libraries that I've seen. It's a people space, it's a community space, and it's definitely much more than books is.
I'd say that's what I'm most interested in seeing, the study, the results of the study and the space, the reading spaces, the programming space, how additional space will add the ability for more programming, and I think it's evident just in the fact that you have to shuffle around all these meetings to different rooms that as a public building, that space is very important and vital to the community. So I'm excited to see that part about it. I think we can all understand libraries and stacks of books. We have a good visual of that, but really the heartbeat of the library and being a center of the community is so important. I'm excited to see the results of that and what your staff brings, knowledge they bring to the team researching it. I'm pretty excited about that. I'm glad we're doing it. I'm glad we're doing it.
So I think this discussion was a good kickoff,
Yeah.
and I urge as many of you as can make that meeting on the 9th at 10:30 to be there. I intend to be there. Always like to get in at the beginning and make sure that they understand the goals that we as a group have. Don't necessarily get down in the weeds with them. You'll be down in the weeds with
Yes.
them. But then when they come to a checkpoint, I think we certainly want to talk with them again. And I think it might be important for us to invite PHNA here at some point for at least a preliminary review of what they've done and where they're going. So, I think that's it.
Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you for coming over.
Thanks.
My
Thank
pleasure.
you, Christine.
And do we have any other business?
Next meeting?
The next meeting is actually not going to be on the first Wednesday of May because they have asked us to have a school building committee meeting that night. So we will be at the SBC on May 1st over at the Zito room. And on the 8th of May, we will be here in this room. And
We have another SBC meeting before the first one, right?
Next Wednesday.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
That doesn't, the first,
April 10th
right.
is our next SBC meeting.
So the first doesn't replace the 10th, it's the next one.
The first and the 8th flip-flopped because the bid package is coming in for the number 2, is that it?
Two, big package
Yes.
two, yeah.
That should be, yes.
I think that's the reason that they asked us to flip-flop it, was for bid package 2 coming in. So then, just because we're all on the school building committee, I'll just let you know that I just got, it was just filed, the notice of intent for the Highland Park parking lot. And I intend to read this as much as I can understand of it tonight before the Conservation Commission meeting starts.
Speed reader. I was gonna say, hope you're a speed reader.
Well, there's all sorts of charts here with, cubic feet per minute of water going through a particular pipe. I can skip those parts. I'm talking about the narratives
Right.
and that sort of stuff.
You
So,
were wrong.
So we expect to finish with the Conservation Commission tonight for the high school, for the stormwater for the main school. We expect to finish with the zoning board next Thursday, the 11th, with them, and that's the variance for height and the parking space size and approving the interim parking, the earth removal, whatever else is on. So we would expect to finish that with the zoning board next Thursday. And then we're on the 22nd with the planning board to finish the site plan review. So all of that should be in place. I have talked to the mayor and the school committee chair and the superintendent and the principal about us having a groundbreaking ceremony for the high school. Because actually the site work they're starting with the fencing. I think they started Monday, didn't they?
And they were marking out Monday, yes.
Yeah, marking it out, and so, but the site work is gonna, for bid package 1, is gonna be starting, so I suggested that we have a groundbreaking ceremony, perhaps sometimes in early May, when, all the appropriate dignitaries can be invited, and we can all wear a hard hat, throw a shovel of dirt. And then I also suggested that we have a second ceremony in the fall, which I've dubbed a cornerstone laying ceremony, even though we don't have a cornerstone for the school, but we have basically a kickoff of the building, and that we have create a time capsule. And so Bill Rooney said that he was going to get the city council moving on that, and I think the concept that the school department has was that we have that ceremony where we invite the kids like in K through 8, or some representatives of them who will be attending the school to attend that ceremony. And that, if we have a time capsule, then we can have people open it in 50 years and they can see what we were thinking today and what life in high school was like today and compare it to 50 years.
Bury it where the school is right now, so when they go to build another school 50 years from now, they can dig it up there.
Yes. And one of my partners said, oh, well, you don't need to put papers and all, and you can just put like one of those memory sticks in. And I said, do you think 50 years from now that the computers will be able to operate those things?
Right.
I mean, if you'd done one 15 years ago, it would have been on a floppy disk, and you wouldn't have a machine that could read it. So we were thinking that maybe it's going to have to be paper that
It
goes
could be
into
fish. Fish you can read with a flashlight and a magnifying glass.
Well, that's true. You could.
And that's almost permanent, certainly more permanent.
That's a good point.
Yes, that's a good
You
point.
can do fish
So let me
and
get this
paper.
right, this meeting's gone from Jack promoting libraries with Kindles to putting paper in the ground so
Yeah.
people can.
Yes,
Yes.
I'm a
I just want to be
dinosaur.
clear on that.
I'm a dinosaur.
Well, no, you went 50
It's
years in
gone
the
full
future.
circle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Great circle of
Just
life.
so we're clear on that,
Yeah,
thank you.
but
Duly
so-
noted.
So the idea though is that we have some sort of a time capsule. And I think it would be interesting for those 50 years from now to have some concept of what high school was like, because I know the high school that I went to 50 years ago, in my 50th high school reunion is this year, is certainly nothing like the education that occurs today. We all sat in rows in alphabetical order. I sat behind Jeff Giacenti for 4 years. He knew the back of his head very well.
So did you have backup quill pens, or did you just have? Jack, I was just kidding.
That was chisel.
Definitely the ancient big wells though.
Yeah. So,
Why can't we talk to the architect about doing a real cornerstone
oh, I think we would.
with a date or something on it?
Yeah, I think we should.
Yeah, like a
I mean,
little
there should be,
monument type
I think,
thing.
actually, I think it's consigliere that we should talk to about that.
Yeah.
About having, I mean, if we have a ceremonial cornerstone, but then when they do the first pour of concrete, to have that embedded somewhere, visible on the corner of the building, right?
Right.
I mean, I think it's a good idea. It's just that it's not going to be a real cornerstone in the sense like the library, that it says 1907 on the cornerstone, doesn't it?
It says 1907.
So,
Why couldn't we put a real cornerstone in like that?
well, we will, but it's not a structural cornerstone is what I
All
meant.
right.
So,
Well, there's no reason why you couldn't.
no,
Instead of taking and putting some bricks in there, we could put a cube of granite with
yeah.
Attleboro High School, 2018 or 2019,
Yeah,
whatever.
and the legend, open in 50 years. Because they probably forget that it was there.
Yeah, you'd have to mark it.
And we'd have to make sure it was able to be accessed, right?
Put like
I'm
a
not
trap.
talking about putting a time capsule, I'm just talking about doing structural.
Oh, okay, so have the time capsule somewhere else.
Right,
Maybe inside the building where you could just open it.
right.
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of interesting ideas that we can do that really don't cost anything. And,
Well, this would cost a little something, but I mean, it wouldn't be much.
yeah.
And to have, a cube of granite, sandblasted with the lettering in,
Yeah.
$1,000 or something, what's that in relationship to 269 million? It's not even pocket.
260, 259, 980, whatever. Because there are certain people who are convinced that we're going to spend more money, no matter what we say to them.
Yes.
So that's our schedule.
Meeting adjourned.
So is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, Jim, we're done.